Hello everybody, War Wizard here. I'm back with a new video. Today I want to talk about the problem with games nowadays nerfing everything. For lack of a better term, the nerfing culture, because I feel like nerfing is a little easier than trying to balance everything with like buffs and stuff. Don't get me wrong, some things do need nerfs. That's not what I'm arguing. It's the fact that it seems like a lot of game companies nowadays want to nerf everything while barely giving any buffs. It's like they want to take the top tiers in whatever game it is. I'm just using Mortal Kombat as an example. I'm going to talk about a bunch of different games today, but it seems like a lot of games are doing it nowadays. They take the top tiers and they try to bring them down to the lower tiers, which doesn't make any sense. Why not make all the lower tier characters up towards the top tiers and then, you know, nerf a little bit from there? Some things were and are super broken, like for example, let's like Raiden with Cyrax and Raiden with Kano was super busted. Here, I'll give you an example.
Looking good. Cyrax. Still waiting for those shades. The tea house.
So, this was very, very broken until they nerfed both Raiden and Cyrax. So, players would do this into... Jeez, I haven't played Raiden in so long. Was it this? Yes, this. So they would do this, and then call Cyrax, and let me show you why. There's nothing they could do about this pre-nerf. It was just like free chip damage, and before the nerf to Cyrax, this move right here would only use half a bar. Now it uses a full bar. So people were just doing this constantly, and there was basically nothing you can do besides flawless blocking. And then they nerfed Cyrax, which I believe was a mistake. I think they needed to nerf Cyrax a little bit on his cooldowns to this move and reduce the chip damage. They didn't touch Raiden at the time, so then Raiden players just switched to Kano, who did basically the same thing as Cyrax. Not as good as Cyrax, but it was still cheap.
Kid Kung Lao.
You can still do it with Kano, but it's not. They finally nerfed Raiden. I know that sounds stupid because I'm complaining about nerfing, but I will show you what I mean. So, is it still on block everything? Oops, yes. So, oops, wrong. Haven't used Kano in forever either. Okay, I got it. They would just spam this over and over. And just like Cyrax and Raiden, all you could do was flawless block to reduce chip. It was brain dead. It was very OP. I'm not gonna lie, it needed to be touched. Now, I do think they overkilled it. I think if they just reduced the chip damage or made it so if you flawless blocked it, like you could like punish it or something. But anyway, to my point, I do know some things needed to be adjusted. So there were some things that were just absolutely brain dead, you know? And so it needed to be adjusted. But when they did that, they barely gave any buffs at the time. They didn't buff anybody. They didn't buff cameos. I mean, little stupid things like, oh, this person's like attack is now 1 frame faster or something. nerfing everything without giving buffs just makes a game unfun. Nobody understands that. Where I feel like we're in an era where people just want to cry. They want their character to be amazing. They want all other characters to be trash. I've seen people who use top tier characters. I've seen Raiden players back when he was broken, bitch about other things like I'm trying to like Kung Lao and Goro. Like, how are you gonna complain when you use when you're using a top tier? But that's to my point. People just cry and complain. They want their hands held. They want to win immediately. They don't want to learn. They just want to jump in the game and stomp everybody. I do believe streamers had a little bit something to do with that. Everyone wants to be the best. No one wants to lose. I mean, people have to accept they're going to lose sometimes. But also, it's the nerfing culture is just, in video games right now, is just so bad. And it's not just Mortal Kombat. So Sub-Zero, from the beta, they nerfed him for some reason. People were trying to say he was busted in the beta because he could loop. I gotta turn this off. He could loop that. I dropped it, but he could loop that for pretty big damage, right? They nerfed his damage, but it made no sense because they kept Johnny Cage and Kenshi from the beta. Everyone knew they were broken in the beta. The same as they were, but they nerfed Sub-Zero. And what happened? Johnny Cage is still the best character in the game, even after all his nerfs. And I don't think Johnny Cage needs to be nerfed again. I really don't. They need to buff other characters, and it seems like they're going that direction with a new patch on, I believe, tomorrow or Wednesday. Like, Sub-Zero's damage now is just... I gotta go. Wow. I am messing up right now. I dropped it, but you have to do way more with Sub-Zero to get, over 30%, when there's other characters in the game that a single hit is high 30s, low 40s. So it's just puzzling to me that they nerfed Sub-Zero from the beta into the ground, basically, when this is unsafe, his overhead is unsafe, this move was unsafe until they recently buffed it. All his gaps, or all his strings had armor gaps. You can armor through basically all of these strings. Oops, I keep messing up. Oh my gosh. All these strings had armor gaps in them. He was super unsafe. Ice Clone is unsafe. People can armor through it. You do that and you armor through it immediately and punish him. So it was very puzzling that they nerfed his damage. I thought maybe it was because, Sub-Zero was top tier in MK11. He was very annoying to go against. But then I noticed they just started nerfing everything good, everything fun into the ground. Like, let me see. They were nerfing people's damage, like Omni-Man's damage. They were nerfing Peacemaker's damage back when he was a rushdown character. So then everybody started using him as a zoner, and he was a busted zoner. They nerf everything fun and useful. They nerfed good cameos. They nerfed Kung Lao cameo. And again, I do know they needed a little bit of adjustment, but to nerf them into the ground without giving anyone else buffs is just a huge mistake. Let's look. So I think the consensus is MK9, MKX were the some of the best Mortal Kombat games. They were definitely the best NRS games, right? And why is that? Is it because they were perfectly balanced? No. They were broken as all hell. They were super duper broken. MKX is full of 50/50s and armor moves and huge damage and ridiculous combos. MK9, again, they had a pretty ridiculous, mix-up game, rush-down game. But people loved those games because they were just fun to play. Nerfing everything into the ground, making them not fun to play, is not good for gaming, period. Unless it is super, super broken. Like, let's look at Leroy when he first came out in Tekken 7. He was super duper broken because top 7 of the top 8 in that, I think it was Evo that year, were Leroys. Like, that's broken. Of course, that needs to be, adjusted. But MKX, like, let's look at it. Everything is broken. Everything, even characters that people would say were bottom tier, had broken shit in it. That's why it was such a fun game. That's why everybody loved it. You could win with any character in MKX. Yes, there are some top tiers that are better, like Crystalline Trimmer. He's probably the best character in the game, don't get me wrong. But you can go into casuals and play well with any character. There's some characters in MK1, especially MK11, that are struggle characters. Baraka in MK11 was a super duper struggle. Shao Kahn in MK11 was a struggle character. I do think MK1 characters in this game are a little more fairly balanced. Even Sub-Zero, I complain about Sub-Zero a lot, but he's gotten buffs. He's gotten a lot better. Apparently he's getting more buffs in this next patch. And like I said, it's not just Mortal Kombat. Let's look at Call of Duty right now. Let's look at Warzone and Modern Warfare 3. They're in this era where they want to nerf everything. And we're in like this pea shooter meta where no guns feel really good to use besides like the Kar 98. The Kar 98 has been nerfed, I think, 2 or 3 times now. And it's still the best gun to use at long range because you can one-shot down, and everything else you have to shoot someone 50 times, It just, every time I play Warzone with my brother and friends and stuff, nothing feels good. Everyone's like, oh, Warzone's getting so boring. And some people try to blame the map, some people will say, oh, the guns aren't as good. That's 100% the issue, is them nerfing all the top tier guns and then barely buffing the little guns. So nothing feels good to use. Let's look at, so I know COVID had a big impact on this, but Warzone, when it first came out, it wasn't just fun because of COVID. It was also fun because look at how many guns were viable, usable. Excuse me. Every once in a while there'd be a gun that was a little overtuned, but very rarely did you feel like you lost a gunfight because you didn't use a certain gun. We had the M4, the Kilo, the Growl, the AMAX. For submachine guns, we had the MP5, the MP7, just a bunch of different guns that we could use that felt good to play with because they weren't obsessed with just nerfing everything. And 100%, I think it's easier to nerf than it is to buff, because nerf, you look at a gun, you're like, oh, clearly it's doing too much damage, clearly it's too accurate, so you nerf those two things, right? But then they don't want to put the work in to buff these things to make it fun. I've seen, the top players like Z-Laner and Huskers and stuff talk about this. It just doesn't feel good to play. The movement's good, but the guns feel like trash. And it just sucks because, like, so Diablo 4, when it first came out, they also were doing that. In a PvE game, why are you nerfing fun things in a PvE game? Who is complaining about that? Seriously. But luckily with Diablo, the fans poured their outrage and were like, why are you nerfing everything? The devs came back, apologized, and said, yeah, we're sorry, we're going to start buffing. And Diablo 4 is a way better game now. Way better. You can have your thoughts on Diablo 4, but it's way better than it was at launch. They were nerfing everything. And I feel like people aren't doing that in competitive games because when they die, they just want to, or they lose in a fighting game, they just want to, oh, that's OP. Oh, that's busted. Oh, that's broken. Without, wanting to learn the matchup, or why not go to the devs and be like, hey, how about you buff this, and this character to make it more fun? And then maybe adjust, like asking them to just completely kill the fun cameos like Cyrax, Kung Lao. They even nerfed Movado cameo damage, and he already gave up a ton of health. He made your character lose 100 health, but that's all he had was damage. I don't understand the thought process behind that. He takes 100 health, but he does good damage. He doesn't have amazing setups except with like certain characters like Havoc and stuff. He was mostly just combo extensions and damage. So why nerf that? It was so puzzling. I'm like, why? It seems like now they're listening to the feedback. It seems like the patch coming up, there's a ton of buffs. I do hope they nerf some things like Chameleon cameo, Homelander fix his infinites and stuff. But to me right now, there's nothing super duper broken that requires a ton of nerfs. Just buff everything else. Everything. Buff Sub-Zero. Buff Havoc. Buff Scorpion. Hell, give Smoke some buffs. They buffed me, Lee May. Brock, I think he needs buffs. I don't care what anyone says. His play style, ever since he got nerfed, sucks. Because he used to do pretty good damage, but now he needs Cyrax to do very good damage. I know you can do some damage with Scorpion, but they're a little harder to do. And, I mean, just, like, raise the level of some of the lower tiers and the lower tier cameos to up, and then try to adjust from there, you know what I mean? Make everything fun to play. If everything's broken, then it's just fun to play. And I don't mean, like, super busted, like Tanya when she first released in MKX, or Alien when he first released in MKX, or anything like that. I mean, just like they have broken setups, mix-ups. Something that keeps them competitive with the rest of the cast. Shang Tsung definitely needs buffs. Quan Chi, I think he needs buffs. He's supposed to be a zoner, but then zoning in this game is very weak. So he just doesn't feel great to play. He feels fun when you land good combos and like you're zoning someone out, but it's so hard to do. I think if you give him a good defensive tool, and maybe buff his zoning a little bit, he'll be in a perfect spot. It's just the nerfing culture in video games. Look at Helldivers 2, another example. So I know it's been out for a long time. Most video games start to lose their player base, over time. All video games, not most. All video games. Very rarely do games continue to climb, except for like when World of Warcraft first came out and stuff like that, Fortnite. But they're in this mindset where they want to nerf everything. And again, in a PvE game, it's not even PvP. Who's complaining? The aliens? The bugs? The robots? Are they, oh, this is too OP, nerf this. Who the hell is complaining about that? I don't understand the thought process behind nerfing anything in Helldivers 2. Like, buff the weak stuff. I don't get the nerfs. It just seems like so many games nowadays are just doing that. And the thought process behind it is they want to cater to casuals. They don't want them to get smashed. But at the same time, even casuals were playing the shit out of MKX. They were playing the shit out of MK9 because it was fun to play. Yeah, they might get smashed here and there. So fix the matchmaking. Don't match them against someone who has hundreds of hours in the game. Nerfing everything is not the answer. Make a good game, and people will play it. Casual, pros, regardless. Another thing that I think is causing this is they're catering to esports, right? Back then, they used to make games to be good. And then they were so good, people wanted to play tournaments on them. Nowadays, game companies, including NetherRealm, They make a game trying to put it in esports. You know what I mean? So everything is heavily nerfed. They're trying to make this perfectly balanced game, and that's just not gonna happen. When you try to nerf everything and keep everything perfectly balanced, that's when something like a DLC character or something is gonna come through the cracks as super busted, and we're gonna have to deal with that character for so long because that one character does so much everything so much better than everyone else. And same with like Call of Duty, that one gun is going to outperform every other gun because you're obsessed with nerfing them instead of bringing other things up. Smite is like another example. Until recently, for those of you that play Smite, they buffed the tankiness of everybody, which was incredibly stupid. They buffed the tankiness of everybody, made it harder to kill. None of the gods felt amazing. None of the items felt great. And then recently, they were like, you know what? Screw it. Smite 2 is coming out. Smite 1 is, dying. I'm sorry, hang on. Anyway, so they realized that, and so they just started bringing back. They nerfed the tankiness of everybody. They brought back the busted items, and now everyone's having fun on Smite. Trying to perfectly balance a game and make it, more casual friendly, it just doesn't work. It makes the game boring. Everything feels bad. Nothing feels fun to play, except if you're playing that one top tier. There's many times where I would use Sub-Zero, and I felt like I lost because I'm using Sub-Zero. I have to severely outplay most of the cast, especially like Johnny Cage's and stuff like that, because I'm using a lower tier character. There's times where I lose, and it's not because I made some massive mistake or something. It's because they knew the armor gaps. They knew my mix was fake and stuff like that. And Johnny Cage has been eating well since the game came out. He just won his second Evo. But, to be fair, look at... not the second Evo, I don't know why I said that. He just won another tournament, the Evo, this past weekend. But, to be fair, let's look at the bracket. How many different characters there were after they buffed some things and slightly nerfed others. There were so many different characters. We were seeing Homelander. We were seeing Baraka. We were seeing Johnny Cage. We were seeing Shao Kahn. We seen Sindel. We were seeing Katana. We seen a Scorpion in the top 8. And that just shows that buffing, when you give out buffs, it's better for the game than when you nerf everything. Because like MK11, they were obsessed with nerfing everything. And so then we were stuck with Cabal and Fujin for the rest of the game's life. It just becomes boring. Also, we need more frequent patches. If something comes out super broken, like Homelander's Infinite, patch it immediately, like the next few days. If someone is very, very, very weak, why can't you send out a quick patch to make them feel a little bit better? Waiting months for good patches is just not it. But yeah, it's not just fighting games either. It's not just Mortal Kombat. Like, look at Street Fighter in its first year. Kens and Lukes everywhere. Everywhere. They were the most played characters by far. I seen the list that guy released of most played characters. At Call of Duty multiplayer right now, not even Warzone, the multiplayer, because me and my brother have been doing the camo grind. We're playing multiplayer, and it's dominated by the Supri SMG, because it's the only top tier gun right now that I feel like. It's dominating at mid range, close range, long range. It's just nerfing everything is not good for gaming. Period. If you're gonna nerf, then you also have to buff You have to. Otherwise, you create these boring metas with the same top one or two characters, one or two guns, one or two play calls, and like Madden and stuff like that. It, like, look at, I think it was Madden 18. There was one play that was basically unstoppable. I can't remember it, but people were making videos about it, and there was almost nothing you could do about it. I just feel like it's affecting all games nowadays. So, if you guys are watching this video, please, unless something is severely broken, and I mean broken, not you don't know how to play against that, because I've seen people say Sub-Zero is broken. He has so many unsafe things. Like, come on. You have to learn the matchups. But please, stop begging for everything to be nerfed in the ground. Stop crying about... Scorpion has gotten so many buffs now. He is not low tier now. I don't care what anyone says. He is not low tier. But they still buff. We need to chill on that. But anyway, if you're watching this video, please realize... Tell the devs. Speak your mind. Tell them. Please buff, these weak things. Instead of nerfing everything. Some games like X-Defiant, they purposely made grinding XP slow to try to make people want to play the game, but they forgot to make it fun. Make a game fun and people will want to play. I don't understand why you're nerfing the experience that you get to try to make people play more. It's just... And I feel like a lot of games do that nowadays. They're trying to trap people into playing. And they think the best way to cater to the casuals is to make everything not fun, nerf everything into the ground, instead of just making a fun game. Look at Gears of War 3. I talked about this in a video in the past. Gears of War 3, everybody was playing it, even though there's a steep learning curve, because it was a good game. It was a fun game. Even though they were getting smashed, they still wanted to play. We need to stop catering to, all the pro players and all the streamers and esports and stuff. Make a good game, and all the pro players will play the game. Look at MKX. Everybody loved MKX. Yeah, I know people bitch about it sometimes, but nowhere near as much as they bitch about it now. People to this day, MKX is the best. MK9 is the best. MK11, in my opinion, was the worst NRS Mortal Kombat game. Because they nerfed everything. They took the path of nerfing everything. And it's because they need to stop listening to the casuals and some of the pro players as much. I know that doesn't make sense, but so many pro players, you see them post up on Twitter, oh my god, this is so broken, without asking for buffs. And then the devs see people complaining about that one broken thing, so they're like, okay, we have to nerf that into the ground and not give out any buffs. We have to stop doing that. We need to ask for buffs for lower things. For everything. Call of Duty, everything. Call of Duty, I hope Black Ops 6 doesn't do what Modern Warfare 3 is doing right now, what Sledgehammer is doing. The meta is so boring. There's so many trash guns and not enough good guns. It's beyond boring right now. So, anyway, I just wanted to make kind of what I think is a big problem in gaming right now, the nerfing culture. It's kind of a rant. But also I wanted to explain why I think... Because I see a lot of people say gaming sucks nowadays. And I think that's one reason. I feel like there's not enough creative things. Not enough creative games like there used to be. It's mostly just sequels and, stuff like that. But I also feel like the nerfing culture has something to do with it. Nerfing everything is just... Especially in PvE games. Like, what are we doing? Let us have fun. Let us kill demons. Let us kill aliens. Let us kill bugs. Why are you nerfing the fun things in a PvE game? That's the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. But yeah, I am all for more buffs, less nerfs, unless something is absolutely busted. Like I gave an example. Raiden with Cyrax, Raiden with Kano. That was busted. That was brain dead. We've seen it all the time. I mean, they literally had no counter almost. It was that broken. That's what I mean. If something's that broken, then yeah, it needs to be nerfed. But anyway, if you guys like this video, please give me a like, subscribe, tell me in the comments what you think. Tell me, do you guys think nerfing culture is a horrible thing? Because I do. I think it's very, very terrible. It makes games not fun to play because everybody's nerfed to the ground. Like MK11, look at MK11. The damage, the only way to get big damage with most characters was crushing blows, and you can only use that once per match. Like, they completely neutered MK11. It was unfun for me. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Please give me a like and subscribe, and I will see you all later.